We were able to identify that after someone had listened to 95% of stories, this was their aha moment where they weren't churning anymore.
Welcome to Aha Moments with me, Kobi Omenaka. In this podcast, we uncover the game-changing insights that drive success in life, startups, marketing, product management, and much, much more.
But we were A/B testing everything. The one that performed best was, if you leave us a review, our developer will be allowed to go home today.
In this episode, I'm joined by the amazing, the brilliant, the fantastic Hannah Parvaz. Hannah is the founder of a digital marketing agency called Aperture, and she's a multi-award-winning marketer in her own right. She's won things like the App Marketer of the Year, for example. I mean, who wins that?
That's really what we do as a business. We're identifying what is this focus point for your business, really zeroing in on that and making sure that everything else stays blurry while we're being kind of dogmatically focused on a specific area.
Want to know and learn from her, then definitely stick around, definitely get in contact with her. Hannah, thank you so much for joining me on our Aha Moments podcast. We've known each other for a few years, and I know a bit about your background, but I don't know everything. So what can you kind of tell us about your background through to here? And I'd love to know about why you started Aperture.
Absolutely. It's really nice to be here. And we've known each other for 7 years. I don't know if you realize.
Is it that long? Crikey.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And the funniest thing is we're working in the same accelerator, and at no point did it cross my mind that you might be from literally the same village as myself in Manchester, to the extent that, like, if we said it to other people, they would have been like, what are you even talking about? That's not a place.
Yeah, it was so funny when we found that out, especially because our accents are a little bit different.
They are, yeah.
But yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, we've known each other for 7 years, and I mean, there's so much that I can tell you, but I'll tell you a little bit about how I kind of got started and what the pathway to Aperture was. And then if there's anything that you want me to tell you a bit more about while we're going, feel free.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the village that we're from, there wasn't actually that much to do when we were growing up. So actually what started happening was when I was around 13, I got involved in the Manchester music scene, and I started running under 18s club nights in Manchester, which very quickly we were selling out for hundreds and hundreds of people, up to 800 people every month. And so I never really kind of thought of this like it was a job. My whole life I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to study law with German. I was obsessed with German. And all of a sudden, I had one conversation with one of my professors, and he said, how come you decided not to do something with music? And I thought, what a good idea. And I went home and I said, I'm going to move to London and work in music. So this was like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Instead of going to university to study law. So I moved down to London. I started working at a music startup, a live music recording company, and the rest is kind of history. I got involved in the startup scene. I went from kind of live music recording company to record label to artist management, and then I got into music tech a little bit more. I was working at an app called Dice, which is a music ticketing app. You might have heard of that.
I've heard of Dice.
So I was doing product marketing manager, which is kind of another word for running growth. So we were doing a lot of experimentation, working on the product, all of the new features, working on the distribution, on the UK marketing plan, how we were building out community. It was a very different way of growing a company than I have been doing with subscription products lately, but I learned so much. And after that, I decided I'm going to say goodbye to music, which was my first love, my everlasting love, and go and stay in tech. So I went to another app, a nightlife app, which the premise when I heard of it, Drinky, exactly. This is where we met.
Exactly,
the premise when I heard of this was, you know, you go to a bar and you get free drinks.
Which is like, hold on, where's the catch?
that was really what customers would say. Where is the catch? Like, what's the catch here? And honestly, it was as simple as download the app. It's now called Dusk, by the way. Download the app, go to a bar, get free drinks, 1 free drink per day. So we went through the 500 Startups Accelerator program, met a load of also incredible other people who I've now kind of helped, who have helped me like throughout the last 7 years considerably. Started coaching for Google on their Launchpad program, which was another program for early stage startups. Started mentoring on a platform called Growth Mentor. Got then involved in subscription apps. So I went to an app called Curio, which is an audio journalism app in 2018. Stayed there for a few years, scaled them up quite considerably. Went to another app called Uptime. at Curio, I won some awards like App Marketer of the Year, a few awards
Yes.
for advertising, which really helped things as well. Went to Uptime, and during this time, I had been looking after both the marketing and the product. So looking after growth, what are we building? How are we building this? How are we distributing these new features? How are we communicating all of this? So after I finished up at Uptime, where we can talk a bit more about it later, I really wanted to kind of become a consultant. And one thing led to another and ended up starting Aperture, the agency. A part of it was because I like cool clothes and I didn't really want people to be wearing Hannah Parvaz as a brand. I was like, I need a cool word for people to be wearing. And the name Aperture came from, I was a photographer in the middle of all of this for many years. I don't know if you know this, where the name came from.
I really liked your Instagram account at the time because it was like the homepage was all black and white, and then you'd scroll through and it'd be like a flash of colour. I was like, that's a really cool idea. I wish I could have thought of that.
It was really cool. I sunset the black and white thing 2 years ago, and now there's just one column of black and white, which still looks quite cool. But anyway, I was a photographer, and really the name the Aperture, whenever you're coming to photography terms, is all about letting light in, putting things in and out of focus. And that's really what we do as a business. We're identifying what is this focus point for your business, really zeroing in on that and making sure that everything else stays blurry while we're being kind of dogmatically focused on a specific area. So we work with a bunch of different really cool, really exciting companies. We're just 2 years and 2 weeks old now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's definitely been adventure. I mean, you've been watching.
I've been watching closely and commenting.
Wild.
Thanks for that background. I've got a few. This brings a lot more questions to me. First of all, like, how important was that teacher, professor, to say, "Look, stop! Don't think about law.
Honestly,
do something in music."
Yeah, actually. I had dinner with the system team last night, and Matt Lerner asked one of the questions, which was like, what was an alternate pathway that you could have had? You know, we talk often about sliding doors moments, and that was one of these sliding doors moments for me. There's some alternate reality where I'm like a German lawyer now. And I think it would have been a good life still, but definitely very different than the one that's kind of just unfolded in front of me. But it's just, I remember when I was young, my mum would always say, in times of kind of turmoil almost, she would say, like, when you look backwards, all of the dots connect. And it's true.
Wow.
When you look backwards, she'd say, like, life is like a tapestry. Like, on the front, you know, on the back, it's like really, really messy and you don't understand anything. But when you look at the front, like, it all makes sense. And so I think about that quite a lot, you know, like when you look back, it's like so clear, this progression. But in the time, you're kind of thinking, what's going on here? No idea.
I mean, there's a few parallels between myself and yourself in terms of that the love for music kind of drove a lot of where I am now. And we should say we were both trying to get Oasis tickets on the same day, and you got them. And I was like,
I got one.
Damn it! Oasis was the
You
first.
didn't get them.
Not yet. I've not given up hope.
If
Liam,
our group can't come, you'll be my person. You'll be the backup, if you like.
absolutely. There with like, you know, a plum. So I loved music with all my, still do, but it's less in my life now. But when I first started my first job, I started music blogging, and I'd go to all these like local gigs, particularly in Manchester, and whether I was allowed to or not, take photos and like blog about them. And that started me on the stage about making websites and on the kind of digital marketing path. And I never thought I was going to go down this way. I never met a few like bloggers in Manchester, because there's a blogging scene supposedly back in
Huge
2006ish, I guess. I don't know.
Were you hanging out at Jilly's Rock World?
No, it's somewhere a bit more sedate in the northern quarter. We'd meet up.
Drive.
Possibly dry bar.
All right.
And then this course opened up in social media, and I was still working full time. My initial career was as an engineer in the oil and gas industry. And just because I was pulled along by, I want to make these blogs, I want to teach people how to make websites, that pulled me down the kind of digital marketing route. And then I had a brief period of being a gig photographer, which is like one of the best things in the entire world.
Yeah.
Like people saying you just go and take pictures of Lenny Kravitz and like Bruce Springsteen and Tiny Temper. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Why not? That sounds amazing. So I just see a lot of parallels between like following, maybe I did more of the traditional route where I went down the engineering route as prescribed by teachers and parents and did the vocational thing. And then was like, actually, I need to maybe do something that's a bit more me. And that's brought me to where I am now. And I think it's a testament to how that can happen.
So true. Yeah, tiny moments have huge impacts.
Yeah.
I agree. Being a gig photographer is one of the best things you can do. It's so much fun.
It is. You've got like 3 songs to get all the pictures you need, and you take thousands in that 3 minutes. And then if you get one that's amazing, then your whole world is like lit up for the rest of the year.
You're going to have to send me some afterwards, and I'll send you some I did.
Yeah, we'll do. A gig photo swap. When I met you with a Drinky, which is now Dusk, which still exists, guys. So if you're listening and you want a free drink, like, you know, get a free drink, download the Dusk app.
Doing incredibly well still at the moment, Dusk. Yeah.
One of the things that like blew my mind when I saw the Drinky app was how many downloads, how many reviews you had on the App Store. Yeah. And can you tell about how you kind of hacked that? Because I still like think about that to this day, because it's astonishing. I don't know if you can still do that, but that was the first thing that kind of drew my attention to what you guys are doing, and you know, yourself as a growth person in particular.
So we built in this virtual currency, which was free drinks. And so you could still only redeem 1 free drink per day. So even if you had 1 million free drinks in your account, you could still only have 1 per day. But the thing is, they would run out, and you'd have to, especially at the very beginning, whenever we were earlier in the product's life cycle, you had to do little tasks, or you would review a bar, or you'd go and do things to earn your free drink. And so one of the things that the founder had an incredible idea about was building in these decks of cards that were like preferences, so we could start to understand the customers better. So it would say, you know, I like whiskey, I don't like vodka, I like wine, I don't like gin, or whatever. And you would just kind of swipe right and left. It was like Tinder, but for your preferences. We called the feature preferences. And then what we did was, at the end of each pack of 10 preferences, you would earn an extra free drink. So people were going through them. They liked doing it. People love swiping and playing games. And so what we did was, at the end of kind of when you've done 10 packs, which by the way, people would go through these packs so quickly. Imagine how quick it is to swipe through 100 things. We would then say you get an extra free drink if you leave us a review in the App Store. And so we'd kind of trained people. You get a reward if you do this task by that point. And so as soon as we launched this feature, the reviews that we got in the App Store just exploded. You know, I think there's probably nearly 40,000 reviews now between the 2 apps. Wow. And a big bulk of that between iOS and Android, and a huge bulk of them came at the time whenever that feature was there, because it was just astronomical, the impact of it. We were constantly testing this product. There was an amazing one developer, absolutely incredible developer, like I don't know if I've worked with many developers who were as good as him, but we were A/B testing everything, and we A/B tested the copy on that screen when we were asking people for a review. And we tested a bunch of things about asking people nicely, and the one that performed best was, if you leave us a review, our developer will be allowed to go home today. And it was quite kind of true of the kind of tone of voice of the brand overall. Like, it was kind of making fun and a bit sarcastic and funny and things like this. So yeah, it was just a really strong, like, well-performing line of copy paired with a really well-performing feature, which was incredibly extensively tested. And yeah, it just drove, it's so good that you mentioned that, but yeah, drove so many reviews on the store, which helped with all of our organic performance, helped with social capital, helped with social proofing, like, just, it helped everything really. So
yeah, that kind of shows that one feature, one channel, even though it's not maybe a traditional one, can really be the catalyst for a lot of growth, however you define growth, right?
Absolutely. And we got so many testimonials and reviews from this as well. So it was incredible to get all of that kind of written feedback, which we were then able to take on board and use inside the product. And I'm not sure exactly what the rating is now, but I think it was kind of continuously 4.9 the entire time that we were there. We also measured NPS, and our NPS was the highest I've ever seen at any company. Like, every time we'd go for a drink, we'd send you a survey the next day asking, like, how likely are you to recommend this to a friend?
You send them a drink when they're potentially hungover, and they're still, the NPS score was still like...
They were like 9, 10, 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Like, people loved it. So incredible product, great idea from the founders. It was amazing to be a part of that journey.
When we talk about, as growth marketers, finding that channel, how do you, with Aperture and other companies, how do you go about finding those channels that are going to drive your growth?
Yeah, I mean, we can think about channels in lots of different ways. Some of them are acquisition channels, some of them are retention channels. So I'll just start with acquisition to begin with.
Sure.
And the thing is, you don't really get to choose your channel. I don't wake up and I'm like, B2B sales is going to work for me today on my free drinks app. You have to figure out what are the channels that make sense for your brand and what works with the kind of unit economics of your business overall. And so with the drinks company that we worked with, actually the majority of the growth all came from referral. And we had an extremely high NPS, which, just in case, I'm sure everyone listening knows what NPS is, but just in case you don't, it's whenever you send out a survey or question to your audience, which says, how likely are you to recommend this product to your friends or family? 0 to 10. And it stands for Net Promoter Score. And so really it's a question that you're asking about referral. So we knew people were likely to refer this because they were telling us. And so we built in a really high-performing referral system where if I refer to you, we both get an extra free drink. So remember, you can still only use one per day, but we both get an extra free drink. And you better believe that, like, if someone was going to a bar with their friends and their friend was getting a free drink, you were going to also get a free drink. So everyone was referring everyone. And there were not so many people that were going on their own for the free drinks. It was usually in groups of 3, 4, 5 plus. So it just had this huge kind of social viral effect. For other companies, sometimes it's just ads that make sense, depending on the stage of their business. Like if you're a consumer subscription product, probably it's going to be ads. And within that, probably it's going to be meta, to be honest.
I love the way you said you don't get to choose your channel.
It's true.
So how quickly do you zero in on that with a company that you I guess with Aperture you've worked with a bunch of clients and they say, oh, we've been trying webinars, and you're like, why are you doing webinars? That's not for you.
Well, the way in which we would kind of start to identify this really is we would be first looking at what is the area that if we impact that in your business, it will have the biggest impact on your overall metrics. So on your North Star metric, for example. So if your North Star metric was weekly active users, or it was nights booked like it is for Airbnb, or it was weekly active subscribers, for example, weekly listening subscribers like it was for a previous company of mine, you break that down into acquisition, activation, retention, and then we're looking at, okay, from an activation point of view, is this our biggest opportunity? Are we acquiring people really well? If we are acquiring people really well, then maybe it's just up to us with the product to kind of activate them better, get them to this point of retention where we don't have to kind of worry about them anymore. Is it retention? Like, are we activating people, but then they're churning? Like Hinge, for example, their tagline's designed to be deleted. They have positive churn. I work with another app and they position themselves like it's a 3-month solution. So They're going to have low retention. So at the moment, we're trying to figure out how we can extend that lifetime value, because we're acquiring really well, we're converting to paying really well. But then after 3 months, because of the positioning and some of the features, people are churning out. So we want to extend that life cycle. But then sometimes also it is acquisition. And when we're thinking about acquisition or about any of these, what we'll do is identify that as our biggest area of opportunity. And then we'll do a big brainstorm together around what are all of the different ideas that we have as an interdepartmental team to really impact this metric. So whether that's, if you're an app, it might be installs, or if you're a e-com, it might be like signups or landing page views or getting people to your in the door. How are we kind of increasing that? And you might say, okay, I've got all these ideas. I've got SEO, I've got content, I've got paid ads, I've got organic TikTok, I've got organic Instagram, I've got B2B sales, I've got, and there are only so many different things, main channels that you can really do. So content marketing, inbound, a lot of our business at Aperture is inbound because we put out content, paid ads, social viral, like there are only B2B sales, there are only so many really. So we can then break them down into kind of smaller, kind of more specific categories, or a big long list. And then what we'll do is we'll just start to prioritize them. This is what we think is going to be the effort, the impact. We're confident in this or we're not. How confident are we? And then this will really help us kind of say, okay, we think this will work for our business. We don't think this will work for our business. And then we start working through them. I would note that when we're thinking about any kind of new acquisition channel, like ads, for example, it's not easy. So I'm always saying, like, adding in a new acquisition channel is going to be like the maximum difficulty level, because you don't just turn it on and then you just leave it. You're constantly testing and constantly experimenting and constantly seeing what you can do to improve it. And so you have to be really confident. Okay, this is going to work based on past experience, or based on what we're seeing in the industry, or based on what competitors are doing, or based on really just what makes sense for your business and your, as I say, unit economics.
Because it's quite interesting, that point where, I was asked even yesterday, hey, want to turn on Google Ads. I was like, okay, cool. And they're like, how much is it going to cost? I was like, I don't know. You haven't even told me the name of your business. I don't know what you sell. There's no way I can answer that question. And then there's like, oh, the budget's not that big. I was like, well, and you want to run it for a month? I was like, I don't think that's for you.
You're not going to get any results from that then. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, so when you talk about your channels work for you as well, there's the appetite as well within the company, or the ability to work within that as well. If they want to go down the adverts route, paid ads route, it's like, well, you're going to have to spend some money. Hopefully not that much before we start seeing results, but it's realistically, we need to spend some money to start getting those results, or time.
100%. And one thing that you said there is so true. All of it was true. But one thing specifically that you said was true was it really depends on like who is inside the team as well. And so something else that you have to factor into that decision is what makes sense for the team that you have. Do you have on your team already, when you're starting to think about acquisition, do you have someone who's absolutely incredible at making organic TikToks? Then it just might make sense for you to go down that avenue to begin with, like start following that lane and then see what happens, and then use those learnings to then go and apply them to your ads, for example. But it really needs to be what makes sense for your business at the time, and not trying to kind of jackhammer in something that's like never going to work for you in the first place, like running Google ads for 1 month on a low budget without knowing even what they're selling with an unoptimized landing page, probably.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've worked with ones where they get to a landing page and you think, okay, so people are clicking and people are buying, but there's literally you can't tell what's happened between clicking to buy and the cart page, and there's no way to like retrospectively see what happens on the page, or there's no cart abandonment. So basically it goes into a void, and maybe at the other end there's a sale, and more often than not there's no sale, but you don't know what makes a sale. And like, should we put more money into that? No, we should try and work out what's going on in this little bit.
It's true. You should be looking at every single step of the funnel and seeing, okay, this is where my biggest opportunity is. Like, if I fix this problem, it's going to help our business.
So with Aperture, and we've talked about, you talk about working with companies with a purpose. Can you talk a bit about that and how that's important for you, and I guess your headspace? I guess that must be quite powerful for you.
Yeah, there have been quite a lot of companies that we've had to say no to just because they were things that didn't really make sense to me, but also to us as a business. So we had to say no to a company that was saying, and by the way, some people might feel like this is fine, but for me, no. There was a men's mental health app that approached us and said, we want to build a product to help men with their mental health. Okay, that wasn't the bit I didn't agree with. I was like, okay, sounds awesome. And then they went away, and when they came back again a couple of weeks later, they were saying, okay, we've rethought our brand strategy. It's going to be all army men screaming at men to be stronger, like guns everywhere, and like you're being pathetic, and like be stronger like they do in the army. And I was like, I don't agree with this. I'm not going to be able to market this product because I'm someone who cares very, very deeply about all of the things that are in my life. And so if you know me, or if you've ever worked with me, like I'm extremely dogmatically obsessed with the numbers, and I have to actually care about this company succeeding for me to be able to feel that way about impacting the business. And so whenever it's something like that, it just doesn't make sense for me. I'm never going to be able to help that company succeed. And so we just can't work with them. We have a no assholes rule, so we only try and work with people who are really, really lovely as well. And it's a testament to all of the companies and the clients we work with. They're all super smart, super lovely people, really, really driven, really inspiring people. And for me, whenever I was starting the business, it really was just a case of, I want to work with companies that align with how I feel and how I've done business. I've always been very selective about all of the companies I've worked with historically, even in-house.
Nice.
About the founders that I've worked with and the products that we're building and things like this. And so whenever I was able to start my own business, and I knew that would be growing it primarily from inbound and referral, it kind of gives you a tiny bit of opportunity to be selective, and pick a little bit of the people that you want to work with and the products that you want to work on. So I know it's a really kind of fortunate, beautiful position to be in. So yes, that's the reason.
No, I love it. Yeah, and it's a great position to be in. So this podcast is called Aha Moments, and I'd like to ask you a few questions about aha moments in and around your business life and potentially personal life, if you want to answer those ones as well. Mm-hmm. So can you think about any products or companies you worked with where you've found an aha moment, and how did you find it, first of all? And then how did you curate or engineer the experience to make sure that the users or customers or clients got to that moment as quickly as possible?
Absolutely. So the way in which I'm thinking about my aha moments are the point at which people are starting to become activated into my product. So we're thinking about, okay, someone's maybe gone through this user kind of customer journey of they've gone from, oh, I'm not even aware of my problem to now I know about it. And now I'm looking for solutions. I'm discovering, I'm comparing solutions. Now I'm actively trying things out. And so during this time here, it's very important that we're helping people get to experience that value as quickly as possible. So what we're thinking about is, at what point do people stop churning? At what point are people really experiencing that value?
Yeah.
So I was working with one audio journalism product, or an app where you could listen to things basically. And we knew that people coming in would be clicking play on stuff. And whenever we started the product, you know, the hypothesis was, oh, when someone clicks play, this is the activation point. Like, this is the aha moment when someone is clicking play. Do you think that was the aha moment? No.
I do not know.
So what we did was we were looking really deeply into the data. We then hypothesized, okay, when someone completes listening to something, so their progress bar on this item that they're listening to reaches 100%, that's an aha moment. And no, it wasn't, because actually what we found was no one was really getting to 100%. And then we freaked out. We were like, oh, everyone's clicking play and no one's completing. We don't have a product. No one cares. And so we started experimenting. Oh, okay, people are getting to 25%. People are getting to 50%. People are getting to 75%. People are also getting to 95%. And then we realized every single piece of content on there had an outro, and everyone was skipping the outro. We identified this, okay, 95% listens, or 90% listens was like this first kind of core action that someone was doing inside the product. 90% of this story or the item. So then what? We start looking at, okay, how many times does someone need to do this? So your first time you've listened to one, you're like, okay, I'll go and listen to some more. So we then, and this product's entirely changed now. So the way it works is very different. This was about 5-6 years ago. And so what we did was we mapped it all out into a funnel, just very simple. First, it was an app. First app open, 95%, 95%, 95%, up until N funnel steps. And we saw that after from first open until first 95% completion, there was a huge drop off. Like, loads of people weren't clicking play or completing this first story. Not huge, not like it was 90% or something, but we were like, okay, this is our biggest drop off. And then the next one was smaller, and the next drop off was smaller, and the next drop off was smaller, and the next drop off was smaller. And essentially what we did was we were able to identify that after someone had listened to 95% of stories, this was their aha moment where they weren't churning anymore.
Yes.
Or they were, but very, very minutely. Like, the churn factor was very, very low after this. And so what we did then was we gave everybody who came into the product 10 free stories to listen to. You know, we experimented, like, should we give them 6? But we found out when we gave them 6, which was this aha moment activation point, people were saving them. They were like, oh, I've listened to 4, I need to be really picky about my next ones. So we experimented with 7, and then we did 10, and we saw that when we gave them 10, people were just being kind of laissez-faire with listening to 6 of them. And then by that point they were activated.
Yeah,
they'd experienced that aha moment. So this was one that was a really awesome point to find out, because it helped us kind of engineer the entire product around this then, to try and get people to that point.
And is it that simple, quote unquote, in that once it got to 6, then it was just whether it was they'd forced through the weeds themselves, or if it was like they guided them on the plate via these 10 free listens. Was it ultimately the same kind of outcome? Was it still the churn the same? Was the result the same? And did it produce growth?
Well, yeah, what we did then was we started engineering all of our comms around getting people to listen and giving them a countdown. Look, day 1, like, we were sending out push notifications every day. Day 1, you've got 9 stories left to listen to. Go on. Like, we experimented around all of that copy. At that company, actually, I ran on my own with help of the team, of course. Like, we had some incredible developers. One, our Android developer especially, was unbelievably great. And, with his growth mindset, with his approach to experimentation and learning and iteration, amazing. And whenever I was at that company, I ran 100 experiments on my own. Like I ran 100
Wow.
experiments. So that was around push notifications, around the ads, around what we were optimizing, around all of this different stuff. And so, yeah, we saw huge impacts by doing this. Huge growth. Like we grew the company to nearly 1 million users in 2 years, which was significant.
Definitely.
And a very active and a very active user base as well, who were really passionate about that product too.
That's the perfect kind of aha moment. And you've gone into the data there. This is like startup growth marketing 101 almost, isn't it? It's going into the data, limited assumptions. What can you find? Where's that rate limiting step? How can we optimize around that, around those steps?
Exactly. I think it's startup growth marketing, but it's also just good business. You know, I'm working on this with businesses that are earning tens, hundreds of millions a year on their activation points, because there's a misconception around that a lot of the time. And so it is going back to first principles, but really it's understanding really deeply how are people behaving in your app. And one of the things you just said was like, was it really that simple? No, it wasn't really that simple. It took a lot of experimentation. It wasn't just as quick as this like 2-minute story I'm telling you. But we start with our hypotheses and then we prove or we disprove them. When I sent around the email update of the 100 experiments I had done in that year, I wrote, 68% of the experiments succeeded and 32% of them failed. And one of the developers replied to me privately and said, like, none of them were failures because we learned something from all of them. And that reshaped my thinking as well. That was like 5 years ago. And I was like, whoa, these weren't failures, our hypothesis was wrong. And I always remember that and always stick to that. And, people sometimes are asking me regularly, how do you deal with like failure or resilience or things like this? And I'm like, because I'm just learning constantly. If I fall over, then I remember to look at that step next time so that I don't fall over in the same place again. Like, are you learning? That's what you need to ask yourself.
I mean, something I always say to people when they talk about failure is that, we learn to walk by falling over and getting up again.
Exactly.
And it's like, why? That's part of learning. That's part of getting to where we can now run and sprint if we want to.
Yeah.
So
Bruce Wayne's dad.
Just before, I just want to get slightly nerdy and geeky. When you're working with people in the past and also in the future, and you want to find that data, what data do you need to be able to make these experiments worthwhile? Because I gave that example where we pressed a button and at the end, maybe there was a sale at the end and I was flying blind and everyone else was flying blind. And I was like, guys, we need to sort this out. But we didn't have the basis to be able to make those changes. So ultimately it just didn't really work out. So as part of your due diligence or part of your, adding more to the analytics packages, what do you look for to be able to do those experiments, to be able to find what might be going wrong or what might be going right?
Good question. So some of my companies that I had been working with, I mean, they were so small that we didn't have a data person. I was the data person. I was doing all of the data mapping, building out tracking flows in Google Sheets. Like, this is exactly what we need to map. These are every single step of the funnel and so on. And so really what you need to be able to do this is have a really rigorous setup of tracking. Like, what is it that you're trying to learn? What are the key steps inside your product? And then making sure that you have visibility on this. So if you're thinking about like an e-com flow, we're going to want to understand those core steps firstly. Yeah. So an e-com shop is a little bit more simple than a complicated app. So we can start there. You're going to want to understand, okay, what pages have someone been on? Where are they exploring? How am I analyzing all of these journeys? But then what are the different steps of that funnel of engagement? So are people putting in their email addresses for this coupon pop-up that we're doing? How much is that impacting on our overall numbers? How are people adding to cart? How are people initiating checkout? How are people purchasing? If you're using something like Shopify now, it's kind of showing you all of that stuff by default. So things have got a lot simpler. But then you're going to want to be able to see, okay, repeat purchases. How are people coming back? You want to be able to kind of identify these users and see what their purchase history is. What's the average order value of these people? So you're going to have a few different data sets that you're going to be joining together to be able to understand all of this.
Yeah.
Whenever we're thinking about like a mobile app or something that's got a bit more of a actually seriously complicated flow, you're going to want to map out every single step of that journey. So you might have 10 screens in your onboarding. You need to have maps tracking on each of those 10 screens, but then also on every single screen that someone is seeing afterwards. So we which could be interacting with, let's say, a language lesson. Like, how far through that did you get? Like, what were the things that stopped you? As you get into these bigger and bigger products, like the data that they have is absolutely overwhelming. So you need to have a really clear kind of place where all of this is mapped so that you can go back to it, reflect on what all of these events mean. Like, what's your event taxonomy? This is really important to keep this like rich and updated. And from there, this is something that we're helping companies with, by the way.
Yeah.
So helping them with their data implementation, with their data mapping, getting it into Mixpanel or Amplitude. If you have one of these tools, it's really helpful because it's going to allow you to build funnels. It's going to allow you to build charts. It's going to allow you to analyze very, very clearly. And usually what you're going to be doing is pulling your data in from Shopify, from your app, from your digital product, from whatever, into one of these product analytics tools to be able to look at it and analyze it. So that's what I would say. You need very rigorous data mapping that really makes sense. So send it over to me. I'll have a look at it if you need anyone. You're going to need a product analytics tool, and you're going to need to be able to understand how to read it. So the product analytics tool is really key for building these charts, building these funnels and dashboards.
And that's your Mixpanel and Amplitude, as you said, are the key ones.
Yeah. If you want to kind of not pay for something like that, you can also now use Looker Data Studio, which is just inside Google. It's like Google Sheets but extreme, if no one's ever heard of that. We used to use Looker proper back in the day, and that was very complicated, but I worked on some really big data projects this year, mapped everything into Google Looker Data Studio. I mean, it's pretty intuitive now, to be honest, to just put everything in there so you can have that pulling from your databases directly so that you can build live dashboards there. So yeah.
So people can start that way if they're not sure where to go down with Mixpanel or Amplitude.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for that. Second aha moment question. You think of an aha moment in a product or service that you love and that made you like buy into it wholeheartedly?
We were talking earlier about Lime bikes.
Yes.
Honestly, the aha moment, I think, for that one, whenever I was starting to use this product, Lime, I had 220 rides this year. Whenever I was starting to use this product, which I'm extremely hard activated on now, except in the winter, the bikes were broken all of the time.
Oh, okay.
Like, you'd get on them and I'd be like, this is actually a death trap. The brakes didn't work, or the seat would like fall down while you were riding, or it would, sometimes like you'd pedal and then the wheels wouldn't stop, like not in a brake way, but like they would just keep going like this, or they were really clunky, or the handlebars were like, and so whenever you try it out the first time, you're like, oh, this is so close to being great. And it's almost like they did it in a really bad way to test it, and then got people like, please work. And then as soon as now, probably it used to be 8 in 10 were bad, 4 in 5, and now it's probably 1 in 30 is bad. And so they've been replacing those a lot. But for me, like, this kind of aha moment was, number one, like you said to me earlier, when you do that half a push,
yes,
and you start being propelled forward. And whenever they started to introduce the passes so that you weren't having to pay £5 trillion to go for a 10-minute cycle. Yeah. So it really reduced the prices there. So for me, it was probably taking 10, 20 rides, understanding that 3 or 4 of them were really great, begging to God, like, please, Lord, like, can they fix this horrible issue with their brakes? Them fixing it, and now I'm obsessed. It's an interesting one to think about, though, because they must be aware that during the winter, it must be a really seasonal product. And so right now, I've taken maybe 1 or 2 rides in the last 2 months, whereas before it was like 5 rides a day. So I'm not exaggerating, like 10 rides a day sometimes, just going around. And so they could be looking at their data going, why is this person churning? And it's like, it's just because it's like grey outside and my hands are cold.
So hopefully hopefully their data people will be like aligning the weather with the number of rides and going, okay, well, look, it's 0 degrees out, so we're going to have less rides today. That's just
Exactly.
unless they then install maybe like heated handlebars, that might change the experience.
This is actually a great idea. I've been saying for about 2 months, I need to buy some gloves so I can go back on my Lime bikes, but I haven't done it.
Well, maybe that's, hey, Lime, if you're listening, what you can do is once you hit 100 rides, then give the riders a voucher to Selfridges. I don't know, Rafa, Evan Cycles, like get some decent, yeah.
I'll accept that. Post it to me.
That will work.
Gloves, Slime.
The thing I love about Lime is as well as that boost you get with half a pedal push, it's just feeling like you're winning against the tube and the bus and everyone else.
I got the bus yesterday and it took me like 40 minutes to go a 10-minute cycle, and I was like, I need to buy all I thought the whole time was I need to buy gloves, but I didn't do that on the journey.
And the final aha question is, are there any aha moments in your personal life that you'd like to share? In
my personal life, I think, what are your personal aha moments? I'm curious while I think about that one.
One big one that I have is like when I don't eat sugar, everything's better. Less brain fog. So don't eat sugar, drink more water. I'm just like a better person, like consistently. And so I do, at the moment, I'm not eating sugar. I will do once as we're recording this, it's coming up to Christmas. Come the 24th of December, I will eat all the mince pies. Exactly. But I know that now I'm like, I feel so much, just I wake up, I feel like energized. Wow. I don't have the brain fog, I don't have the sugar coma like in the day. And it's like, I should do this more. And when I first realized that, I was like, yeah, this needs to be more of your life, Kobi.
That's a really good one. I'm going to kind of springboard off that and say that 2.5 years ago, 2 years and 9 months-ish now, I stopped drinking alcohol. Yeah. Which I think you know. And yes, I do. That was definitely an aha moment. I think it came at a time where I was having a lot of big changes. So I was leaving the house that I'd been in for 4.5 years. I was going remote, like I was going completely traveling. I gave away all my stuff. I was leaving my job and I was starting Aperture all at the same time within like a kind of 1 month period. And I was like, I need to stop drinking so I can focus on all of this other stuff. And then I read a book about alcohol branding. It was like, it's being incepted into us from a young age, and I was like, oh my god, I've fallen for it. And after that, I just haven't except last week actually, I accidentally was served an alcoholic Negroni.
Okay.
I drank a little bit and I was like, is this got alcohol in it? I couldn't even tell because it was like so strange. But yeah, and after that, I felt like I could feel it, like half of a Negroni. And in the morning when I woke up, I was like, I can feel this in my body, because it's been so long. I was like, I can actually feel that. So that it's just so relevant what you were talking about, like that brain fog, like that, like feeling in your brain that you have. It's just so, yeah, not drinking alcohol anymore was a bit of an aha moment for me. I didn't need that. I think
we see that a lot. I mean, as I say, we're in December now. More and more people will be doing dry January. I think more and more people will be getting that kind of feeling and think, actually, do I need to drink still? Because if I don't, I feel way better after a month of not drinking. And more and more of my friends are not drinking, and never is it a problem. Whereas like 5 years ago, I'd be like, dude, where's your beer? I don't know what that accent was. I never speak like that.
Actually, whenever I would have a break from drinking, like I'd do dry January or I'd do like a month off previously, everyone would be peer pressuring me so hard. Like, why aren't you drinking? Come on. But actually, when I said, I don't drink anymore, no one has ever, even one person at all, they'll go, oh, how come? Like, you're a freak, but that's fine. I accept it. But no one pressured me at all, which was really, that was a shock for me too.
Well, that's really cool.
I thought it would be much harder than it was. And now quite a lot of the people I know have also stopped drinking.
So you almost had that armor ready to just like say, look, I've stopped drinking. So you're ready for all of the people to come in and like ask questions and try and sneak a tequila into you.
You'd be surprised that no one cares.
That's an aha moment itself. Like sometimes you think so much about what you're doing that you think people are going to really like be upset by the fact I'm not drinking or whatever. And when you tell them, they're like, okay, cool. I'm just going to do my own thing. As long as you're not going to force me to do the thing, then it's fine. That's just, we're still going to be friends. We're still going to hang out. It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, the places that I hung out changed slightly.
Sure.
A slight shift from, late night cocktail bars to like being in cozy places. I think when I stopped, I went to the cinema like 12 times in a month. I was like, what do I do? And like you probably go, how often do you go to the cinema?
I go at least once a week, typically, even with the kid. It used to be a lot more, but yeah.
I thought you would be going a lot. So yeah, but yeah, another aha moment, as you say, is no one cares. Do your thing. Do your thing. That's it.
Hannah, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining me and telling everyone about the aha moments and your background. How can people get in touch with you, by the way? If you want them to.
If you want to, I'd love you to get in touch. So you can just search my name on Google, Hannah Parvaz, P-A-R-V-Z.
See, this is one of the things, like, with having a slightly different but also not too hard to spell name.
Or you can add me on LinkedIn as well. So I'm floating around on there. It's going good. I like LinkedIn. LinkedIn's my favorite social media now, I think. So
it honestly, for me, it really is as well. And it went from like 5 years ago thinking like, I'm here just to get a job. Now I post stuff about the films I love, as well as talking about, podcasting and marketing, and love the responses you get there as well. So it feels like a legitimate waste of time, even though it's not a waste of time. Use of time, I should say.
Your LinkedIn is on fire at the moment as well. You're smashing it.
Thank you.
You're the probably number one LinkedIn content creator right now. So.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Hey, if you're listening, if you want to follow me on LinkedIn,
follow him.
You probably follow me on LinkedIn already. But follow Hannah, and as long as you don't, make an app for army bros, then you could probably work with the guys at Aperture, and you'll be all the better for it.
Thanks for listening. Nice to chat with you, Kobe. Thanks for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching this episode of Aha Moments with myself, Kobi Omenaka. Huge thanks, of course, to Hannah, my guest for this episode. Like I said at the start, if you want to get in contact with her, all the details for her LinkedIn and her company Aperture are in the show notes. So rush over there now, scroll down and click on the link and, connect with her right now. Please do everything that podcasters ask you to do. So like, subscribe and share with your friends, of course. Leave a review. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then scroll down a little bit and leave a comment so we can connect and we can hopefully continue the conversation further.